this video, I'll be dealing with describe image part of PTE speaking. Along with read a lecture and read aloud, this section contains maximum marks of speaking. Let's begin with the scoring criteria. Just like other speaking items, marks are awarded on the basis of content, fluency, and pronunciation. And there are 5 marks for content, 5 for pronunciation, and 5 for fluency. And overall, one describe image part contains 15 marks. And there are approximately 8 to 10 items, so technically each and every item contains 15 marks. One important thing I really want to discuss is fluency and pronunciation. These two things are assessed as an ongoing process. For instance, suppose your fluency and pronunciation was very good in all other sections except 1 to 2 describe image or let's say read a lecture. Your overall speaking marks will be less, because fluency and pronunciation is assessed as an ongoing process which begins with the first speaking item and remains constant till the last speaking item. So make sure your fluency and pronunciation is almost equal in all items, and your pace should be stable during the whole speaking sections. Just do not try to change the style of speaking in each and every item of PTE speaking. So make sure just maintain a continuous speed and a continuous flow of speaking. Next is content marks. In describe image, maximum marks for content are 5. 5 marks are given if the person describes all elements of the image, their relationships, possible development, and conclusion or implications. 4 marks if the person describes all key elements of the image and their relations, referring to their implications or conclusions. 3 marks if the person deals with most key elements, and 2 marks if the person deals with only one key element. And 1 mark is given if the person describes some basic elements, and no mark will be given if the person mentions some disjointed elements of the presentation. So one thing to notice here is key elements. Describe all the key elements means describe all the important elements. It doesn't mean that the person should describe all the elements, all the things, and all the variables given in graph. In each and every graph, there are 1 to 2 important factors, or sometimes 2 to 3 important factors which are known as key elements. So when we read this, that 5 marks are given if the person describes all the key elements, means all the important points of the graph. Next is the describe image part contains line graphs, bar diagram, picture, map, pie charts, flow charts, and table. And in this you will get 5 seconds of preparation time, and this is very significant. The reason behind this is better preparation leads to better explanation. And then you will be given with 40 seconds of speaking time, and in this make sure you talk for more than 35 seconds, because this way your content marks will be more as well as your fluency and pronunciation marks will be more if you talk for more than 35 seconds rather than just speaking for 20 seconds. Next is how to utilize preparation time. The first thing to notice is type of image. First of all, look quickly at the type of image. Next is look at the heading of the image. Then look at the x-axis. Sometimes years and items, weeks, and time frame is given on the x-axis. And then look at the y-axis, and here sometimes units or percentage or numbers are given. Look for the keys mentioned on the bottom or on the left side of the graph, and look for the maximum and minimum figures. These 7 things are very crucial to notice, because if you prepare these things, you will be able to speak clearly and properly in next 40 seconds of the time. Next is, suppose let's take this example. First thing to notice is type of the graph, line graph. Next is heading, consumption of 2 food items in India, and those food items are potatoes and carrots. Then x-axis from 1990 to 1998, and then y-axis gives units, that is kilograms per person. So while doing that, just make sure you talk to yourselves. because this will boost your confidence, and second is you will memorize some of the data, so it will be easy for you to speak. Next is, suppose this is the graph. First thing to notice is bar diagram. Heading is use of mobiles and landlines across the world. Data is given in percentage. This is the key, mobile and landline. X-axis tells from 2010 to 2015 and 2020-2025, means data is in future. So this graph is giving us the future predictions. So make sure while explaining this you use future tense. Next is how to describe image. How to explain in the 40 seconds given to you. Try not to stop before 35 seconds. If you have just finished with your content, make sure you repeat any sentence or make sure you paraphrase any sentence instead of keeping quiet. Don't take any pauses. Just make sure instead of these pauses use fillers. Fillers such as the graph clearly shows, or it's clear from the graph, or you can say if we look closely. Suppose after first sentence you don't know what to speak next, just use a filler. Suppose the first sentence is the graph shows precipitation change in Canada and America, and you don't know what to say next, and then you can say the graph clearly shows, it's clear from the graph, or you can say if we look closely. This will give you 3 to 4 seconds to prepare for the next sentence. And next is just try to say 5 to 6 sentences and a conclusion. That's more than enough. Don't try to make some complex comparisons, and don't try to use high-fi vocabulary, and don't go into too much detail. Just keep it simple and just try to talk for 35 seconds and just say 5 to 6 sentences. Next is vocabulary. There's no need to use very high-fi vocabulary. And if you're confident in this, you can talk, but if you're average student just like me and your English level is average, just make sure you don't add any high-fi vocabulary in this. Just keep it simple and keep your fluency and pronunciation proper. Next is complex sentences. Again, I'm saying no to complex sentences because I'm not very confident in talking these complex sentences. While speaking, I can't look at the graph and I can't construct a very hi-fi and complex sentence while looking at the graph. So I always prefer to keep it simple. Next is don't take IELTS task 1 reference, because I did that. In IELTS task 1 is a writing task, and we have approximately 20 minutes to finish that task. So in IELTS task 1, the writer often makes any complex comparisons and the data is more penetrating than the PTE speaking. So make sure this you don't follow IELTS task 1 because this will confuse you. Next is the first sentence. How to say the first sentence? You can start with the graph, either it's bar graph or line graph or pie chart. The graph shows or illustrates, compares or depicts. The graph shows. Next is heading of the graph, which we have just prepared in our preparation time. This was the second items to look for. So just say the heading of the graph. The line graph shows. What was that? I forgot. The line was shows consumption of carrots, or the line graph shows imports and exports in USA and Canada from 1999 to 2011, and a projected value for the year. If the data is given in future, you can say and the projected value for the year this and this. So the first sentence will be the line graph shows consumption of potatoes and carrots in name of the place India from 1990 to 1994, and projected value for the year 2025. So this is how you will construct your first sentence. Okay, in this case we'll say in our preparation time we looked at the type of image as well as the heading, x-axis and y-axis. So our first sentence will be based on those items. The line graph shows consumption of potatoes and carrots in India from 1990 to 1996. This was our first sentence. And second sentence we can start like the dash was maximum, means the verb, the consumption was maximum, the sale was maximum or minimum. You can start with either with maximum or with minimum. The consumption was maximum in 1990, and this is totally optional if you want to say this, which was approximately 70%, and then it increased or decreased or remained constant, or then it increased significantly and reached to minimum in 2012. After that it again became maximum or it again became constant, anything you can say. So this is how you can explain your second and third sentence. Start with the minimum or maximum figure. The sales was maximum in 2010, and then it increased significantly or it decreased significantly and reached to this figure. Next is your third and fourth sentences. In third and fourth sentences, either you can compare or you can start with the other variable, just like on the other hand, start with any other variable, or you can say any exception. Exception means suppose the sales were maximum during the whole period and then in 1 year they decreased suddenly. So this type of exception you can explain, or you can compare these two variables or any two variables. If there are a lot of variables like 10 to 12 variables are given in one image, just make sure you compare one or two variables together in single sentence. Don't go into too much penetrating study. And at last, the fifth sentence will be the conclusion. And in conclusion, don't stress too much. Just say anything related to the graph which you think is the conclusion, just say it. Don't stress too much and don't try to find a perfect conclusion, because this will take time and you will lose your fluency. So let's take this example. First, we have noticed in our preparation time heading, type, key, and x-axis and y-axis. So we'll say the bar diagram explains, the bar diagram illustrates use of mobiles and landlines across the world from 2010 to 2015 and a projected value for 2020 and 2025. Next is the second sentence. We'll start with minimum or maximum and with one variable. The use of mobile was minimum in 2010, which was approximately 20%. This is totally optional. The use of mobile was minimum in 2010 and then it increased significantly in 2015, and in 2025 it is anticipated, because this is in future, it is anticipated that the 90% of the world's population will use mobile. Next is the second sentence will be landline. The use of landline was maximum in 2010 and then it decreased significantly in 2015, and it is anticipated that in 2025 the use of landline will be 20%. So in conclusion, in future the mobile use will be more as compared to landline use. So this is how you can explain in 5 to 10 sentences, and I'm talking slower. Just make sure you talk a little bit faster than me. So this is how we'll explain it. Just like the graph compares use of mobiles and landlines across the world from 2010 to 2015 and a projected value for 2020 and 2025. The use of mobile was minimum in 2010, which was approximately 20%, and then it increased significantly in 2015. And it is anticipated that in 2025 the use of mobile will be 90%. On the other hand, the use of landline was maximum in 2010 and then dropped significantly, and in future in 2025 only 20% of the world's population will use mobile. In conclusion, in future mobiles will be more popular. So this should be the speed while you describe image in PTE. Next is pie chart. Just be careful with the pie chart, because sometimes lots of variables are given in pie chart. So try to explain minimum, maximum, and any exception. So in this case we'll say The pie chart shows time spent by teenagers on different activities. And one important thing to notice here is time spent by teenagers. This percentage is time, not the teenagers. Don't say 45% of the teenagers watch TV. This is totally wrong because the percentage is time, not the teenagers. So the pie chart describes time spent by the teenagers on different activities such as study, TV, computer, and outdoor activities. Approximately 45% of the time teenagers spend on watching TV, which is maximum. Minimum time, that is only 5%, is spent on outdoor activities. 40% of the time teenagers spend on computers and only 10% of the time is spent on study. In conclusion, the teenagers spend least amount of their time on outdoor activities. So this is how you can explain, and if there are a lot of variables, just stick with the minimum, maximum, and any exception, or if there is any equal number of variables, you can say like 10% for two variables. Suppose the teenagers spend 10% of their time on computer and TV. So make sure minimum, maximum, either exception or any equal figures. Next is map. Make sure you learn the location of continents beforehand and some basic changes and basic locations in the map. Just prepare it beforehand, refer the world map and learn some basic things. So it will help you a lot while explaining. And suppose in case of emergency, you don't know anything about the region shown on the map. And then make sure you go with the directions. Suppose they have given you the map of Australia and you really don't know that this map belongs to Australia, and you don't know the cities of Australia, you don't know the regions of Australia. Just go with the directions. Just like you can say the map shows precipitation change in a particular geographical region. If you don't know its name, okay, just say in a particular geographical region. In northeast side the precipitation change was maximum. On the other hand, in southeast the precipitation change was minimum. In the central area the precipitation change was 10%, while on the periphery the precipitation change was 20%. In conclusion, most of the precipitation change took place on the periphery. So this is how, by just mentioning the directions, you can easily explain the map. But I will say just make sure you refer the word map and learn some basic things before going for actual test. So suppose in this case, if you know the name of continents, name and location of the continents, you can easily explain it. So you can say the map represents percentage change in precipitation across the world. Most of the precipitation change, that is above 80%, took place in one part of the Europe. In Asia and Australia, the precipitation change was below 10%. On the other hand, in Africa, there was no precipitation change took place. In North and South America, the precipitation change was approximately 50 to 80%. In conclusion, we can say that most of the change took place in one part of the Europe, while in Africa, there was no precipitation change took place during the whole period. So this is how, if you know the name of the continent and the location of the continent, you can easily explain your map. Next is emergencies. Suppose there are lots of variables in image and you get confused that how to explain that. And second emergency is if the image is totally unknown and you don't understand anything at all. So how can we deal with it? Again, I would say just keep on talking. It's better than being silent, because this is a speaking test and we should keep on talking no matters what. Just make your fluency and pronunciation good and don't worry about the content in case of emergencies. For example, this is the map. In this, lots of variables are given and I don't even understand what it is. So make sure you follow the same format. In preparation time, we are going to look at the type of image, line graph, the heading, changes in the value of weeks earning in terms of wholesale food commodities from March 2006 to Feb 2011. I didn't understand at all. Just read it. X-axis, Y-axis, change in percentage since March, and there are a lot of variables. So in this case, when the microphone opens, just make sure you talk anything. Just like you can say the first sentence according to our format. The line graph shows changes in the value of weeks earning in terms of wholesale full commodities from March 2006 to February 2011. In case of average weekly earnings in terms of fluid milk, in March 2009 it was maximum. On the other hand, in March 2008, the changes in average weekly earning in terms of grains was minimum. And in Feb 2011, the average weekly earnings in terms of grains was also minimum. On the other hand, the BLS average real weekly earnings in private sector employees only was constant throughout the whole period. So in conclusion, we can say that the private sector employees earning was constant during the whole period. On the other hand, the minimum changes took place in average weekly earnings in terms of grains. So technically, I know it didn't make any sense and I couldn't even understand what I just said. I couldn't even understand what this graph explained to us, what message it conveyed, but technically I spoke for 35 seconds. So make sure in emergency conditions, keep on talking. You can pick any variable, and I always recommend to pick maximum, minimum and exception. But if you can't, pick any variable. So in this case, just try to pick anything other, like average weekly earnings in terms of slaughter livestock was approximately 0% in March 2006, and then after so many fluctuations it became maximum in March 2009. Then after that it decreased significantly. On the other hand, the average weekly earnings in terms of fresh fruits and melons and fresh dried vegetables and nuts was approximately 10% in March 2006, and then it showed so many variations and fluctuations, and it became minimum in Feb 2011. So this is how, just pick any variable, pick anything and keep on talking for 40 seconds, because if you don't understand the graph, don't keep silence. Make sure you talk anything at all. So at last, just keep on talking as I've said earlier. And if you keep silent in one described image, and it will impact overall score of speaking, because fluency and pronunciation is just assessed as an ongoing process. So many of my students told me that they kept silent in one or two items and this impacted their whole score. So make sure you keep on talking and do not get your fluency and pronunciation suffer for the content. So these two are the websites where I practice and I check for my pronunciation. So these are dictation applications, and make sure you just go to your browser and go to these websites and you can check your pronunciation, because it will type when you speak. And whenever I say the second form, my pronunciation is always wrong. Like if I say increased, instead of increased, these applications always type increase, because there's a problem in my pronunciation. So make sure you pick, or you just check your pronunciation and note down some of the words which is not picked by these applications, and make sure you work on those words. And again, don't try to copy the accent. Describe image is very easy as long as you're not so much concerned about the content. Say about the maximum, minimum, any exception, that's it. Make any one comparison. You can say the sales of laptops was double as compared to computers in 2009. So this is comparison. Don't just go for so much penetrating studies and so many deep studies. So hope this helps.